All righty, here we are. Marcus Michelli and Christopher Michelli coming at you live again. We had a little bit of a topic today over lunch that we were talking about, and we were talking about the formation of the Central Drainage District. If you guys have been to our website, it's michelliformayor.com. And also, you check out our Facebook page. Make sure that you hit like on these YouTube videos. So at some point we can quit posting them around these channels. You'll just see them as they become available. Uh, so make sure you like our YouTube channel. Make sure that you like our mayor's page. If you want to hear more about the drainage topics and the development topics, we're going to try to make this one kind of short and sweet and not real long. We were discussing over lunch today some of the issues with Central and some of the things we agree with, some of the things we disagree with. But a big topic for me and Chris has been for a while uh, about forming drainage district boards. And the drainage district boards, we want to see if our policies in place. This is a policy proposal. It would have to be approved by the council. Our policy proposal would be to form a 6-person drainage district, citizen run district, each person appointed by 6 council members, the 5 districts, and then 1 appointed for the at large district. So that board would meet, say, once a month. They get paid. So we're going to make sure that they get paid because they're going to be working. They have access to an engineer and they have access to the city attorney to make sure that they're doing things legally. Um, each one of these members would be appointed by the council member in their district, approved by the full council, and then also approved by the mayor. Chris, instead of me talking the whole time, why don't you take it over? You know the discussion as well as I do. So why don't you take it over and start explaining a little bit better than I can? This is a policy proposal to try to bring both camps, as you can see what goes on social media, try to bring both camps, the camps that are pro administration and the camps that are anti administration together by appointing all of these members to a board to try to help us all come together as a common goal. Chris, it's over to you.
Okay, so now that you explained, I guess what their response, what their I guess the foundation of what the drainage board would be. I guess the reason behind it may be a good topic to start off with. I think one of the biggest reasons that Central could use a drainage board would be, I think, a lot of the problems that people have, a lot of the complaints I see are about city services and IBTS. Everybody has an issue with they're not getting things done, or maybe they're not finding what areas to do work. You have, you got to wait for a complaint to come in before anybody can relay that message to IBTS or to city services. Maybe they don't even know where to relate the message. They don't know anybody. They don't have those contacts. And then IBTS has the way it works now is they have to correspond back and forth with the mayor, and the mayor ultimately has ultimate control over everything. The idea is with the drainage board to give some of that power to the district themselves, where, okay, the people that live in these communities know more about the drainage concerns than anybody else. So why shouldn't they be the ones to point things out? Why shouldn't they be the ones to have a little bit of control and a little bit of, they have the most understanding. Another reason would be full transparency. Everybody would be able to see what's going on. It's not a heavily controlled, mayor-controlled item. It's the residents taking action, and they relay these messages to their council member for their district, their drainage district, and then that council member will handle or relate that message back and forth to IBTS, or the drainage member themselves can relate that message to IBTS, and so on and so forth. It makes things a lot smoother. That way you don't have the responsibility of locating, failing facilities. You don't have the burden of trying to find where improvements are needed within the city. You have that person in that district has full awareness of what's going on. I think that's one of the biggest purposes.
So I was talking to, and I'm not using any names, and I'm doing that in general to try to keep these videos as least controversial as possible. So I was talking to some city officials, and to confirm some numbers that we have is we have 17 full-time IBTS employees, with the majority of that being office staff. And then would they have the ability to hire 8 more part-time employees? And so speaking to a city official in regards to this issue, because keep in mind, the policy that we're going to put in place is actually what Livingston Parish has in place. It's how they handle drainage. So we will take their wheel that has already been built and implement a similar wheel into Central. So out of the 25 employees, my question to them is why aren't we going out and just digging ditches, just all day long? That's all we do is digging ditches, because most of the complaints on Facebook are in regards to my yard is flooding. It's localized, generally, most of it. I mean, we do have some issues with the co-meet and the A-meet, but the state is funding that, and those issues should resolve over time. And also some of the stuff the current administration has done by redigging some of the canals and some of the bigger subdivisions. Like I know that they dug out Bellingrath. The current administration has dug out Bellingrath. I'm not sure which other ones have been done. Oh, behind Northwoods, I believe, was done as well. But I'm sure there's other projects maybe they have going on. But I know those 2 big areas, the 2 most congested areas of Central, have been dug out. But the idea of this is to handle some of the localized flooding, because as we know, I've been out here for 30 plus years. A lot of our ditches hasn't been dug out since God knows how long, 2004 maybe, or more, depending on where you complained at. But when you used to call East Baton Rouge Parish, I've lived out here a long time. And when you used to call East Baton Rouge Parish, generally within a week or so, you would see a dump truck and a backhoe going around your subdivision, digging out all the ditches to make sure the flow line, is that the correct word, Chris? The flow line is correct at the bottom of these ditches?
Right.
I don't think we've had that. I don't think we've had any of that really in that type of format since we've been a city. So one of the city officials said to me, to get back to that story, was we can either be digging out ditches or filling potholes. IBTS, it's $6 million a year, is not capable of doing both. So then I spoke to another city official about the formation of our own public works. And most people have the consensus that the formation of our own public works department is a way for the city to go bankrupt quick, fast, and in a hurry because of the cost and expense. So I asked this question: who's done this study? Have we put these numbers together to find out how much it costs? How much does it cost to make even just a small one to start? Maybe removing some of the maintenance issues from IBTS into our own public works division, just that little bit, and keeping a lot of the administration stuff still over at IBTS. Maybe that should reduce what we're paying, the $6 million we're paying to IBTS. They could offset some of the costs of doing some of our own stuff. And no one knows about that study. So I said, well, how do we make the determination to go from IBTS or Public Works to IBTS? And my understanding is they're just following the same schematic over and over again that the previous administration had handled. And I don't think the study's been done. So what I would like to see is, let's figure out how much it would cost to start forming, not saying what we are going to form, but start forming a small, maybe a 1-man or 2-man crew to start taking over some of these responsibilities. Because the argument to me would be this: if you're not capable of doing the work, are you actually saving any money? If you're not capable of performing the work, is the city actually saving any money? Now, I'm not saying that we need to formulate one. I am saying we need to figure out how much it's going to cost to even formulate maybe a 2 or 3 man crew maybe that's our only job. So you can have this board of 6 members that should be paid that are either implementing it through IBTS. Okay, for this week you guys are doing nothing but ditch work and you're going to work in this area. Or if we decide maybe we could formulate our own small public works, have a dump truck, a backhoe, and say 2, maybe 3 guys, and even maybe have some part-time guys that's their job. And that's what they do. They go out and dig out some of these ditches, fixing some of the local flooding. Chris, can you talk about any of the small, what you've heard around the community and through some of these social media sites and through conversations about some of the local flooding issues? Chris, let me qualify you real quick. Chris is a professional engineer. He does professional engineering work. He is only on here to advise. He is not part of this campaign. He will not be working for the city of Central or any of that type of stuff. He is only, because he was born and raised here, trying to give his good, honest opinion about what he thinks needs to be done. So take it from there, Chris.
Well, first I should say that I'm technically not a professional engineer yet, but I will be pretty soon. I'm certified but not licensed yet. I will be hopefully in the middle of next year. But to get to some of the items, I guess, for I guess their responsibility or things that they would keep an eye out for are failing infrastructure items, improve facilities. If you have any culverts that are collapsed or maybe that are being sunk into the ground, being backfilled naturally through erosion control problems themselves. I think those are a lot of the things. Debris, vegetation that's in the ditches, people clogging their ditches with burning leaves, I think is a pretty common problem. I think those are a lot of items that the drainage district or the drainage board member in each district should be looking out for.
And so they live in their district. So when they rains and we have these small amount of rains, they are better eyes than somebody like me that lives on the other side of Central that's not seeing it. So they're actually physically seeing where the problems are, and they can point the staff or the employees, whichever one it may be, the IBTS staff or our employees, if that's what we so choose, to that direct area to start resolving it. Would you say that's pretty accurate?
Yeah, I would say that would be one of their sole purposes is to. I mean, nobody knows more about what's going on in their neighborhood than they do, and even if they don't see the problem, they know all the neighbors in the neighborhood that do, or at least they should be an appointed person that is a pillar of the community, a pillar of those neighborhoods that has an open line of communication at all time. And I would also say that another thing that lends to the transparency part of this is. I believe that they should have a tab on the central website, and they should be able to provide updates for their district. Every district maybe has their own little link within that tab and says, okay, well, these are the issues that I see. I believe that IBTS is working on these, or the city services contractor at the time are working on these items, or maybe if it gets to a point where the city of Central does have a couple guys on there. On staff that has the capability of digging ditches or maybe replacing culverts, small items that they can handle those things themselves, and that would all be transparent on the City of Central website for everybody, for all eyes to see.
And also, you would say that it's probably more personalized because you're probably dealing with someone that's more local that you probably know,
right?
And so it should bring the community a little bit closer together. And it doesn't matter which side of the community you're on. Everybody sees these social media pages. So you can have, both sects of this community, because I think the community is fairly divided, is you can have both sects on the same board, and those guys are actually taking care of their own communities. But the people in their own communities actually know them, so they can call up on the phone and say, hey, Jeffrey, I need such and such dug out, or, maybe you could put some of these candidates or these ex-candidates, here. So, you could call up and say, hey, Barrow, my ditch is clogged up. Can you, send somebody out here and unclog this ditch and maybe trim this tree, the tree that we have out here. So maybe you could come out here and trim this tree because, he's more affiliated with that. And he knows that area pretty well, and he probably knows, the proper contacts. So I think that's a pretty accurate thing, and I think it would keep some of the chaos down.
Yeah, it would certainly keep a lot of the complaints to a minimum, I would think. And then maybe on your tab on the city website, you can have a comment section for anybody within those districts that hasn't been hasn't been able to get their message out. Hey, look, I'm in District 3. There's some ditches here that need some work, and they'll just make a comment section right on the page.
Yeah, or they could also have contact information, maybe a cell phone number or something.
Right.
Go ahead.
I think it's definitely an avenue worth looking into.
Yeah, I do as well, and I think it's a good solution. I think that it'll over time. I don't think it's something that'll happen overnight, but you could have a crew that's their full-time job. They just go out and dig these ditches out. I think the community would support spending the money to make that happen. Because we're not talking about a ton of money here. We're talking minimal. I mean, what can you buy a set of decent equipment for? A dump truck and a backhoe, $100,000. Well, I believe that we're spending quite a bit more on other things. We certainly could invest $100,000 and, probably less than $40,000 a year for those 2 or 3 employees to go do that. So I think it's a viable solution. I think that the community, no matter who you support or what you believe, you can start pushing that solution to make it become policy or an agenda. Maybe this could become a top agenda for the campaign. You can not only move this same schematic that Livingston uses into drainage, we could also use this same schematic as other cities do for development. You can do the same thing. You have 6 board members. The committee approves or disapproves development plans. Certainly the city the elected officials need to update our UDC, our building codes, but they have a criteria to meet. They report directly to their council person that they work for. They approve or disapprove. It goes to the P&Z, to the mayor, to the council to get approved if it misses any one of those steps. So the community becomes involved in the development that goes on here as well. And the development and the drainage are really going to be things that work hand in hand together. They're separate issues, but they're really in some way they're the same issue. What do you think, Chris?
I think it's a good way for the city, for the residents of the city to invest into the city, and then for the city to invest back in them. Even if they end up, if it grows to a point where they're investing in equipment and things, it's investments into the city. All these capitalized costs that you're, instead of spending $100,000 with whether they're for benefit or not for benefit company, you're investing that $100 into your own city.
That's right, and it's your time, it's your money. So I think it's a very valid point. I think that if you have concerned citizens, I live on what would this be, the south end? Yeah, the south end of Central. And if I knew a local guy, I could probably call him up on the phone and say, hey, I've got a ditch problem. And he'd go like, all right, I'm going to put you on the agenda and we're going to get out there and get it handled. As opposed to, you're trying to call IBTS, they're a month behind, they've got 6 potholes to fill, they can't get to your ditch. We focus on that because that seems to be the number one issue with Central is localized flooding. The co-meter and the A-meter being taken care of in a different way. So these are 2 separate issues. But this solves one issue. One issue that Livingston Parish currently does, and it's how they implement their drainage problems. I think that we could take that schematic. I have that information. I've talked to some of those guys, and take that schematic from Livingston Parish on a much smaller scale, implement into our city that is going to appease the population in general because they're actually going to be seeing and watching this work performed. And secondly, I think that I would add and go back to the point, if you're paying $6 million for a service, but if the service is not capable of handling the entire situation, I think, what did we say the other day? 66,000 acres is in Central, Chris. Is that accurate?
If I remember right, I think it was like 40,000, maybe. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Something in that ballpark. So if you only have 4 or 5 guys in the maintenance crew at IBTS that is not capable of going out and digging this massive amount of area, I think, of Central, I just don't think it makes sense. I think that you may be saving money, but if you can't perform, why do you have it implemented? I mean, this comes from the first administration, from the people that were there. It's implemented into the second administration, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus because you have all parties that were involved in that in one shape, fashion, or form. So I'm not singling anyone out. I'm just simply saying that we shouldn't be paying for a service that's not capable of handling the complete business. Now, I don't think that we can get away from IBTS or a similar company like IBTS completely. We can't afford it, quite honestly. And after discussion with many people on the issue, I think the study should happen. We should find out what the cost is, and maybe there's a benchmark to where at some point there's going to be a level out mark. So I just think that at some point we got to figure that out. I mean, right now we're spending $660,000 a year on the city police department, and that's almost the same amount of money that we're spending on IBTS. They have what, 6 full-time deputies and 2 dispatch, plus a police chief and an assistant chief. So we have 8, 9 full-time employees there for $660,000. So why couldn't we take that same $600,000 we pay the IBTS and do the same thing? We have 9 full-time public works employees plus some equipment. Secondly, we build equity in the city. So the city starts getting the equity from the equipment, the properties that we own, because we're going to have to own some property to do that. So I just think it's something that's worth studying and looking further into. And from my understanding, it hasn't been studied, and we need to figure that out. Chris, anything you want to finish with?
No, I think that covers pretty much all of it.
All right, guys. Thank y'all for watching. We appreciate you. Central, we love you. Remember to vote Michelli, because I'm the one with the fresh ideas instead of the old stale ideas that keep going on and on and on. So remember, at the vote booth November, Marcus for mayor. God bless you. Goodbye.